main speaker tonight share his journey as it relates to this specific steps in our program. And he's going to talk for about 45 minutes or, Brad, whenever the Spirit is done with you. And if we have time at the end, we'll open it up for any questions relating to what we talk about tonight or whatever your experience or journey is with it. So after a moment of silence, if we could all just kind of take a breath and shake off the day, I'll share a form of the set-aside prayer, and just join us, be with us right here, right now. God, please help us to set aside everything we think we know about ourselves, the 12 steps, this book, the meetings, our disease, and especially you, dear God, so we may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help us see the truth. So tonight we have Brad doing a second week of sharing on I think we're doing 5 through 7. So just a recap of last week and however the Spirit moves you. And if we have time, open it up. Brad is just a wonderful, just spiritual informant here. Like for me, it's like I get stuff that I've not ever heard before. And it's just so deep and just beautiful. And I'm so thankful that, Brad comes to share his journey, his experience as he has been on this journey. So I'm grateful you're here with us tonight. Thank you for coming all the way to Bernardsville, New Jersey. And if everyone could please give Brad a welcome, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Brad Langenberg, obviously, it's my name's there, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm also a drug addict, compulsive overeater, bulimic, codependent, love addict, nicotine, caffeine. I didn't know that when I started this whole journey. Thank you guys for coming here, or having me come here and showing back up again after I spoke last week. I was kind of thinking about it, and I was reading through step 6 and through step 7, and where it talks in there, it says separates the men from the boys in here, and it later on the step I'm reading out of the 12 and 12. And for me, just in the beginning, when I first got sober, that willingness just to try to grow and try to be something different than I was, not better, but different. It's not like when I got sober that everybody says I got my life back. I didn't get my life back. I got a life, because I really didn't have the life. I was moving around a lot, but I didn't really have life. And in here, when it was right, it has indeed come a long way spiritually, without any reservation. If he's taking this step, he has indeed come a long way spiritually, and is therefore entitled to become a man who is sincerely trying to grow in the image and likeness of his own Creator. It's kind of a big one, right? Because I don't even know what that is. What does that look like? And I came into this program and I used a lot of words that I didn't really know. I used the word love and God and faith, and I just didn't know some of these words. But like I said, in the beginning, I just had to have a little bit, and a little bit of faith, and a little bit of understanding, and a whole lot of pain kept me going. When I was thinking about living in the likeness of your own Creator, one of the things that has helped me to try to understand, because I was always trying to know God, and for me, it's not really about how do I know God, but it's how do I invite this thing called God. Our whole program is about this thing called God. And I found some stuff. I've been reading through Language of the Heart, and there's some amazing stuff that Bill has written in there. And I hope you guys don't mind me reading some of the stuff I was reading today. He says, after enjoying this simple and comfortable view of some of my years, I finally awoke to the probability that there might be sources of spiritual teaching, wisdom, and assurance outside of AA. A had provided me with a spiritual home and a climate wherein I was welcome and I could do useful work. This was very fine, all to the good, yet finally I discovered that I needed more than this. Quite rightly, A didn't try to answer all my questions, however important they seemed to me. Like any other adolescent, I began to ask myself, who am I? Where did I come from? What is my purpose here? What is the real meaning of life? Though my sobriety had come easy, the growing up business hadn't. Both emotionally and spiritual growth had always been mighty difficult for me. My quest to understand myself and better know God and his design for me became a matter of great urgency. So this is when Bill had like 20 some years of sobriety when he was talking about this stuff. And I really appreciate that humility because, I've been able to put a few days together, but the longer I've stayed sober, thank God I found, for me, what it talks a lot about in here in this step, it also said, having granted us a perfect release from alcoholism, why shouldn't we be able to achieve by the same means a perfect release from every other difficult or defect? This is a riddle of our existence, the full answer to which may be only in the mind of God. Nevertheless, as at least a part of the answer to it is apparent to us. And I talked a little bit about this last week. What I discovered, the reason I don't want to let go of some of these things is because I'm getting some value out of it. I started to understand God, the more I understood about this character called Brad Langenberg and how I operated, it started to leave rooms for something higher to come in. And I can't imagine that there would be a greater purpose than that. I had a lot of signs. I have some friends that are on here that probably know from my place in Santa Monica. I had a lot of signs on the wall, and one of them is, "It is wise to seek immortality because time defeats all other ambitions." See, I had everything backwards, and I'm supposed to grow out in the likeness and image of God. But see, I think I said this last week. For me, God's definition of life and man is not the same. I came into this planet, and I thought for sure when I got in here, when I first got sober, I'm from Nebraska, and my aunt was Johnny Carson's teacher. If you guys, so many people remember Johnny Carson. So I actually got a chance to meet him, but my first few years, it was of me that for sure that I was going to become famous and I was going to be on the Johnny Carson show, and he was going to be asking about my life. And in my humility, I was going to tell him all these great things I'm doing, and I'm doing charity and I'm helping people, but no grandiosity here at all, right? But I had all these ulterior motives going on, and I was always trying to build myself up then rather to get free of self. And in this program, in the beginning, I've said before here that I did have to learn how to love myself, but our whole program is about getting free of self, not making it better. But part of that is I've got to find out what is this self that I'm bound to. And for me, that's what I find in some of these steps, especially in 6 and 7, where it's talking about humility. And for me, that definition of humility is to have a low view of my position and rank in the world. That's a definition of humility. See, I've had it all wrong from the get-go. I always thought that I was supposed to go out there and do something. I thought for sure that I was supposed to be famous and rich. I thought that was my whole point. And I come from Nebraska, and seriously, I thought if I wasn't at least what Bill Gates or Warren Buffett was, then I just had kind of failed in this thing of life. And it had always been such a competition. Everything was competition. I was so full, and sometimes it's still there. Talks about in here that we live in a world riddled with envy. It also says we live in a world where everyone is emotionally and mentally ill to some extent. So for me, these steps are, how do I start to grow back in the likeness of God? And there were so many things when I was listening. I was actually at the gym and I was listening to, you can listen to the 12 and 12. You can listen to the steps on YouTube, and it's fascinating. There's so much stuff in here. But what I was really thinking about is that humility. And that last night, when I got sober, I was in Nebraska, and something happened, and I hit that place where I knew that I could do nothing for myself from myself. And I hit that place, and when I hit that, it didn't last very long, but my whole life changed. I was in a tiny town of 190 people in Nebraska, And that moment happened, and I really couldn't catch my breath. And, you know, there was that one place where I was just a little bit humble, and I said, God, whatever it is you want me to do, I'll do. And I went to California. I didn't want to go to California. And it was really tough when I first got out there. Everything that I touched seemed to kind of fall through my hands. And it was actually probably a gift more than anything. Because I really needed to be crushed, because that night when I got sober, I got a second gift, and I realized that I'd been faking it all my life. It talks about in here that the chief defect that's fueling all this is that it's fear. And see, the main thing that I have every day is that I'm fear-based. You know, the other day I was sitting here at my desk, and I was doing something. All of a sudden I was like, oh my God, what? I'm just so full of, I've just got this anxiety, fear. What in the world? What am I doing? I got nothing to be scared of. But that's just my natural, that's what my state has been. This anticipatory anxiety that I'm in. And for me, most of that has to do, I can really kind of tell when I'm living in my character defects where I'm at. A lot of that has to do if I'm present or not. Because, see, for me, I can have this thought life, or I can have conscious awareness. I can't have both. And see, what I've always done is I'm always planning and planning and planning, trying to do the next move, whether it be with a woman, whether it be with money, whether it be with what you're going to do. And I've been trying to buy myself through a woman, money, a career, doing something, going somewhere. And then when you slow down and all of a sudden you stop, then all of a sudden I found out, yeah, there's all this fear and anxiety. And I always thought I was kind of a driven person, but I wasn't really driven. I was just chased from one activity to the next, because you know what happens if you stop moving. Do not stop moving. Got to keep that thing going, right? Talks a lot about in here about having, and those steps talking about having natural desires. And I think we really do have natural desires for things. There's only one problem with that. I'm not natural. If I want to know what natural desires are, I have to become natural first. To see that tense person in the morning trying to go about my day, that is not natural. All you have to do is go watch nature. It is not tense and uptight. It's not anxious. It's really cool because I work with horses, and what's really cool about it is they'll be standing out here because I can see them from the window. And sometimes they'll be out there grazing, and something will happen. Their heads will go up like, oh shit, what's going on? And all of a sudden, like, oh, it's nothing, boom. And they go right back to where they're at, and they're not even thinking about it. It's just boom, instant relaxation. But that's not my natural state. See, for me, I had to get really, really honest. And I've got some people in my life that wanted to want to go much higher. But see, I live in a planet that everything is about competition and going out and doing something. And the highest state, you know, like I said, a definition of humility is to have a low view of my position and rank in the world. I was thinking that I should have the highest position, the highest rank, and then that's when I really scored. That's when I become somebody, right? And it never did work. I had the gift of working with, there was a guy, and it was so interesting. I talked to him not long ago, and pretty wealthy guy, and we were walking through Beverly Hills one time, and I had such financial insecurity, and I just wanted so much, and I had so much envy and, you know, basically greed. I covered up in a lot of different ways. He talks about it. I covered up my greed by calling it ambition. And I was walking with him in the streets of Beverly Hills, and he finally stopped at me. You know, that anticipatory anxiety, you know, that really was deep inside, you just can't shake it. I had it that day, and he finally stopped and he goes, what's wrong with you? I go, oh God, I've got such financial insecurity and low self-worth. And part of me was telling him that because I was hoping he'd give me some. You know, I was hoping he'd like write me a check, go here. But I'll never forget, because he looked at me, and I'll never forget this. And he goes, yeah, me too. And, you know, he's in the top couple hundred wealthiest men in the world, but I'll never forget the look on his face. And that's when I realized I will never accumulate enough out there to cover this hole in here that I have. And I think that's one of the gifts I had. I was living in California. I got around people that I thought that they had everything. And I got to find out that they were just exactly like me. That fear didn't go away. As a matter of fact, sometimes it made it worse. It's really interesting. I might not have said this, but before I came to California, there was a movie star, somebody that I always wanted to be. So interesting how things work out. And I just thought for sure if I could be this guy, this would be the pinnacle. And this was the guy. And I used to ride horses at Will Rogers State Park up in Pacific Palisades. And not too long ago, I was up in the Palisades having breakfast. And this young gal came by. She's pretty young, and she smiled. And I was with somebody. And she goes, she was smiling at me. I said, yeah, right. But could be her dad. I don't know who that is. But pretty soon, I was standing there, I had my cowboy hat on. It was pretty soon she was standing at the table, and she goes, "Are you the guy that ride horses at Will Rogers State Park?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And she said, "I can't say who it is, but she said, I'm so-and-so's daughter." And I went, "Oh, wow, I remember you. I used to ride my horse by your house all the time." And we got to talking. She'd grown into this really amazing woman, and she's done a lot of amazing things. And she goes, "Have you seen my brother at all?" And I used to stop and talk to him all the time. He loved the horses and everything, and the cowboys. I talked to him all the time. And she goes, "Have you seen him?" I said, "No, but I saw him in a couple of magazines, and he's really grown up. He's come to be quite the young man." She stopped and she goes, "You know what? My brother always wanted to be you." And then I went, "Oh my God, that's how it works. Like I always wanted to be his dad, and he wanted to be me, not just because of who I was, because of the freedom and the life that I had, because I rode all through that park in the wealthiest part of town. And it was such a gift, and what I really learned and what I learned from these steps is when I was in Santa Monica, California, around there, that there was so much going on. I'm an only child country kid, and being in Santa Monica, there was so much, and it was just so busy in there. But when I got up on that hill at Will Rogers, and you could kind of overlook the whole place, and I could actually see from the ocean to downtown LA. And when I would get up there and I could get above it, I was like, oh, it's not so scary. And for me, that's what these steps actually do. It gives me an opportunity to kind of separate from all this stuff that I've been living in, all these character defects, greed, envy, whatever you want to call it. Slowly as time, I want to be free of these things. And even when it came to relationships, there was a spiritual teacher that I heard say one time about women, and it really just blew my doors off. He said, she settled for sex when she wanted to be held. And I realized I'd always prided myself as I always wanted to be the white knight. I wanted to be that guy, that white knight. But deep down, I was not that white knight. I'm talking about sober. Deep down, I was not that white knight. Deep down, I was a predator because I had one thing that was going on in my mind. And that's not what she was looking for. And I realized in relationships because I really never thought about it. I never really thought about someone else besides myself. People were more objects than beings, especially when it came to the opposite sex. And that changed my whole world. And I realized, oh my God, she doesn't think like I do, right? And that's what this step's about. How much am I willing to give up? Pretty soon we're going to be celebrating the guy's birthday. And he said, the things I do, you can do, and greater things still. There's the bar. I can do. If I can do what he did, I can know what he knew. He also said, and I talked about the other step, when we started to get into success and achieving things, we cannot go taking credit for that. That is more the success of God than it is in me. I don't know, it says someplace in here when I was reading about, I can't remember what it was, but basically none of this happens from me, right? Just like I said before, that I could never do anything. When I realized I could do nothing for myself, from myself, my whole life changed. And then I started to have power. And when I came in here, I wanted power. And then I found out when I ceased to want power over anyone and everything, guess what I had? Power over everyone and everything. I realized not long ago, I realized that I don't even make myself walk across the floor if something else does that. But see, I wanted to take credit for all these things. I did this, I did that, I've done that. No, I haven't. Something else has helped that happen. Jesus said, why do you call me good? None is good but the Father. Same thing goes with me. But these are things that, like it just depends on how far you want to go. There's a buddy of mine that's on here, and I remember there was a guy in California that I knew named Jim Dunnigan. He was the most interesting guy. He had all these awards and stuff that he put up on his wall. I'll never forget him the day that I called him, and he'd taken and thrown them all in the trash, you know. And he was just a really neat guy, you know. My buddy here that's on here knows him, and I always just appreciated that about him because he could have really tried to have a high position. You know, people wanted to really have him take and lead workshops and stuff, and he just kind of declined all that. He kind of kept a simple life. He didn't want all the awards, and I really appreciated that about Jim. You know what I found out is that the reason I'm in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous because that didn't work for me. Going out there and being an athlete, being somebody, you know, that did not work for me. That's why I'm in these rooms. And thank God I found my way into these rooms. I love some of the stuff I've been reading by Dr. Carl Jung, where he says, you know, the alcoholic more than anybody needs a higher power and a community to protect him from that. He said to use it, protect him from he did use the word evil, the darkness and evil of the world. And he said, I'm hesitant on using those words because everybody's going to misconstrue what they are. You know, and like I said, when I first started these, when I asked God to remove these shortcomings and character defects, my prayers aren't so, they're not too complicated anymore. They're just, God help me. But then the trick is to get back to just being where I'm at. See, it took me quite a while. I had an experience one time. I was walking down, remember the Pink in Santa Monica scene? Remember that? I was walking in this alley. It stunk, but I was walking down that alley and something happened and I wasn't thinking about anything. I was just walking down that alley. I'll never forget that. And the freedom that I felt from that. See, for me, that's what these character defects, they've kept me. Most of that is, like I said, I can live in the kingdom of I, the kingdom of thought, or I can live in awareness. For me, where I'm going is that I want to balance in between conscious awareness and practical thought. I want something else to live my life for me. That's what this means. Let's see, here's the tough part about it is if God removes my character defects, who will I be? Because without that self, who am I? Those character defects are the self that I'm bound to. That's what I've found out. But see, I'm always trying to make myself better. And, you know, I've spent days in the gym and I've got all kinds of cowboy hats and shiny things on my saddle and everything else dressed in a certain way. Who knows what I've tried to do just to improve the outside of myself to cover up all the fear that I have on the inside. That's what I love about Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, we can kind of sit and go, hey, man, here's what we're really like. Because that's, for me, that's when the light comes in. That's a beautiful thing about it. I had a buddy of mine come here from Nebraska, and he shared at our meeting out here. And Ricky doesn't really go to meetings, but he works such a great 12-step program because I met him out here one day, and geez, what time was it? He was doing a horse clinic out here, and we started talking. He goes, what do you do? And I said, well, I work on a farm where we mentorship people in drug and alcohol recovery. And he kind of looked at me different. Next day he came up, started talking to me again. He goes, you know, I haven't drank for about a month. So we started talking. He came out to our farm and hung out. And, you know, we started to go through these steps in just a really simple way, though. He started to tell me about some of his character defects and some of the things, some of his wrongdoings. And, you know, he started to get honest with himself and he got honest with me. And he spoke at this meeting out here. Afterwards, a lot of people go, you know, because he said, you know, I really haven't done 12 steps, but he has. People forget that Dr. Bob and Bill Wilson, they didn't read the book. There wasn't one. They didn't do a written inventory. It was all verbal. There wasn't even 12 steps. As a matter of fact, everybody got mad when Bill went to change it from 6 to 12. Don't do that. You can't do that. But what was really cool about Ricky is we started talking and he got honest about his character defects. He went back to Nebraska and he works on a big ranch. It's about 70,000 acres back there. And so all the people at the ranch where he works are all starting to get sober. He's taken to meetings and working to get them into detox. And then he has a minister that he's been going and working with. And so it's so cool that he's worked 12 steps, but he hasn't worked 12 steps. I'm really, really grateful for what I found in here. But part of it is I had to start to see it through myself, and I had to start to see through that out there. I don't read the Bible all the time, but as Jesus said, my kingdom isn't of this world. I was trying to build my kingdom here, and it just doesn't work. There's something much higher. I used to talks about our natural desires, and I had to start to be able to put the truths I know before the desires that I feel, because it's just pulling at me all the time. But all the thing I can do is when it gets into that is to come back to right where I'm at, to be aware of what I'm doing as I'm doing. I don't think there could be much more spiritual than that, than me to be less mental. All these character defects are all in thought. They're all mental. That's because I'm thinking and planning and planning. I'm trying to outthink the other person all the time. What they're going to do, I'm going to hustle them somehow. If you say this, I'm going to say that. It's really painful to play chess with life. So, there was one other thing that I read in here that I wanted to talk about, but I think I'll let you guys off the hook. As long as we place self-reliance first, and genuine reliance upon a higher power was out of the question. The basic ingredient of all humility is a desire to seek and do God's will was missing. So how do I find out? For me, God's will, this is for me. If God created this moment, then I should be 100% in it. Not sitting here thinking about what I'm going to do when I get done. Because what I realize is, if you're thinking about something right now and it's not happening right now, you know what that's called? Imagination. We have a sign on the farm here that says right thinking is thinking about the right thing at the right time. And what you should be thinking about is what you're doing right now. So for me to seek God's will as I seek this moment, in the Bible it says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and all else will be added unto you. For me, that kingdom is right now. I try to seek this right now. All day long, I have to come back and shake myself out of all these character defects, daydreams, or whatever you want to call them, all these battles that I have inside. I mean, it says we cease to fight everyone and everything. How's that going, guys? Because I got little fights going on. They're happening. But, I just got to keep asking for higher help. But the more that I actually see what I'm really like and let something else change me, and not take it personally, not say I to every single thing that comes by. That's the reason I have so many problems. I think, I feel, I think this. No, I do not think that. That's a thought just passing through me. There's a feeling passing through me. Those aren't my thoughts. And besides, if I have a disease of the mind, it'd be wise to use that thing much less. So I really appreciate you guys having me come to your meeting today, and it's good to see you. Thanks to those friends of mine showed up this evening. Greetings.